Yeah, I think we can kind of kick things off. So, first of all, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone joining us from around the world. It seems like we have quite the international crowd today, which is awesome. And also, thank you everyone for just making the time to join us today. I'm Huslin. I'm from the product marketing team at Kong, and it's super awesome to be here to this user call on declarative API management in Kubernetes with Kong Gateway Operator. So before we officially kick things off, just a quick reminder, you can use the chat feature throughout this call to send any comments that you have, or if you're facing any technical difficulties, that's where you can use the chat. But if you have any questions for this user call, please use the Q&A function for that. And at the end, we will reserve some time to go over any questions that we receive. So please make sure to do that. And also, this user call is being recorded, and afterward, you will receive a copy of the recording within 24 hours. So if you miss anything and you want to watch back, no worries there. That is it from my end. So now I'll just pass it off to Patrick to kick off this user call.
Yeah, thank you, Guslan. So welcome everyone on today's session. Today we're delighted to talk to you about Kong Gateway Operator managing your Konnect configurations. My name is Patrick and I'm a software engineer at Kong. I'm one of the maintainers of Kong Egress Controller as well as the Kong Gateway Operator. And I'm here together with Mattia.
Yeah, everybody, I'm Mattia Lavacca. I'm a software engineer in the same team as Patrick, so I'm a co-maintainer of the Ingress controller and the Gateway operator as well.
And we have a packed agenda, so let's jump straight to it. So in this talk, we're going to go through the following topics. Some Konnect fundamentals for those that are not so keen and do not know all the details about it, what Konnect control planes are and how to use them, how Kong Gateway Operator can manage your Konnect control plane configuration, and then we'll go to the demo to show you how this can be achieved in a live setting. Afterwards, Mattia will show you how to deploy data planes with the operator and how to integrate them with Konnect. And we'll finish off with Mattia's demo showing us a working data plane deployment which gets its configuration from Konnect. So Konnect, as I mentioned, refresher for those that do not know Konnect. Konnect is Kong's API lifecycle management solution that allows users to create and manage their data planes configuration, but also much more beyond that. But we'll focus on this. It contains many different modules like Dev Portal, API products, Mesh Manager, or Gateway Manager. And today we'll focus on the latter by configuring our gateway configurations from our Kubernetes cluster. So the Gateway Manager, which I've just mentioned in Konnect, allows users to create various types of control planes, which serve as isolated configuration domains. They facilitate environment or region, team, or resource hosting and management separation. Each control plane can have many data planes attached to it, where each of these would use the same configuration coming from said control plane. Konnect Gateway control planes, or CPs, support various types, where each serves a dedicated purpose. So among those, you can see those familiar with Kong gateways will know that Konnect also supports the same entities like services, routes, consumers, and many more. Now, onto the Kong Gateway Operator. So a refresher for those that do not know Kong Gateway Operator, or KGO as we often refer to it. KGO can manage your Kong data planes in your Kubernetes cluster. With a handful of simple commands, it will allow you to deploy and configure Kong gateways in your cluster with very little oversight from you. It supports Gateway APIs resources like Gateway and Gateway class, Ingress API, as well as Kong's own resources like data planes and control planes, which serve both as building blocks for gateways and as standalone APIs, which you can use. Data planes can be especially useful for those that integrate with an already existing control plane like Konnect, which we're going to cover today. While control planes resources deploy Konnect ingress controllers, which are responsible for translating resources like, for instance, HTTP routes into Konnect configuration. Konnect gateway operator can also auto-scale your gateways or your workloads based on user-defined metrics, perform blue-green rollouts of Konnect gateway, manage your custom plugins natively in Kubernetes, and much more. Mattia will go through working with data planes later on in the talk, but in the meantime, let's discuss how Konnect gateway operator can manage your Konnect configuration. For this, we'll assume that a working deployment of the operator is installed in your Kubernetes cluster. It can be locally with Kind, Minikube, or it can be hosted somewhere on AWS, Google Cloud, or Azure, or wherever you prefer. KGO can manage Konnect entities to Kubernetes CRDs, or Kubernetes custom resource definitions, as we refer to them, that Konnect provides for its users. Some of those might be, as you can see on the screen, Konnect gateway control planes, representing the control planes that I referred to a while ago, or Konnect services, Konnect consumers, or many other configuration entities that live within a CP. But there's many more of those. Objects of these types are watched by the operator in its reconciliation loop. So each object contains its desired state, the spec as the user defines it, and the observed state, the status. The latter of those is synchronized with Konnect to present to the user the most up-to-date information about said object. When the operator observes the new objects or changes to the existing ones, and syncs those changes against the Konnect APIs. Each type has its own set of APIs that KGO will use in order to progress object state towards the desired state. So for instance, to cover the basis for our demos, in order to communicate with Konnect, we obviously need some sort of credentials. And to express those, we procured Konnect API of configuration CRD, which either contains as an option token verbatim inside of it, or it refers to a secret which contains the token, which we're actually going to use in this demo. So on the left-hand side of the screen, you can see that I'm referring in the spec secret ref, my secret with the token. And on the right-hand side, you can see my secret as I've defined it with the token in its data, in this data field. Now, that particular object is then referenced by any of the objects that we define, which is about to work against the Konnect APIs. So for instance, in order to represent and create and manage Konnect gateway control plane, we have an object, a CRD of this type, which you can define in our cluster. As you can see, I've defined a name and a namespace for this object, also a name as it will show up in Konnect UI and API, as well as the Konnect ofref, which references said API of configuration. As I mentioned before, every object contains also its status. So the operator will fill in the status with several bits of the information that will retrieve from Konnect APIs. So both of the fields, the status conditions, and also the discrete fields that we add to particular types will be filled, and it will show you everything that you actually need to know about said object. So for instance, here you can see that the object that I'm talking about has a referenced Konnect API of configuration found, not found, but it's that it's programmed, the status is true, and it also has the ID and the organization ID in the server URL set on the very bottom. Now, let's jump into demo where I'm gonna present a very short demo where we create a Konnect CP and some of its configuration. So with that, you should be able to see my terminal when I have a bunch of YAML files defined, which we're going to apply to a cluster in which the Kong gateway operator is already running. So in the code editor here, you basically see the same objects that I've shown in the slides a second ago. We're going to apply the Konnect API auth configuration and then Konnect gateway control plane. Let's do that just now. And then on the left-hand side, you'll be able to see that both of those objects have been applied. And both of those are shown with the org ID from which the token is coming from, and also the ID of the control plane that's been created. We'll go in a second to Konnect.
Sorry to interrupt you, Patrick, but I can see your screen. Probably you are not sharing, or I don't know.
I do see Patrick's screen. How about some of our participants? Could you let us know in the chat?
Yeah, can someone confirm?
Patrick's screen.
Oh,
okay.
It is visible.
Sorry. Yeah, it's me. I apologize. Sorry.
No worries.
Good, thank you. So with this, we can see the CP with the ID, the org ID, and the Konnect API auth configuration. Also showing the server URL where it's coming from, and the org ID where the token is coming from. We're also going to go through a little bit of CP configuration. So I'm going to create a bunch of services and routes, which Matthias is going to utilize later on in his DP deployment. I'll deploy one external route, external service, one internal that was going to point to an internally deployed deployment inside the cluster. I'll also deploy a consumer with a API key, a plugin for the key auth, and also apply a plugin for the rate limiting. And we're also going to apply two Kong plugin bindings. These are gonna bind the referenced entities. In here, I'm gonna bind the service with those plugins that I mentioned. So in essence, the service that I'm going to deploy, the external service that I'm going to deploy will have a rate limiting set, whereas the internal service, as it's internal, so we'll protect it, it's going to have a key auth set. Now with this, I can go ahead and apply those entities. And because I'm monitoring them, and the left-hand side of the screen, you should see those popping up. And at the same time, their status being updated by the operator when they get created. So all of the consumers, plugin bindings, routes, and services have been created. Now, allow me to just double check that we indeed have that set in the Konnect.
We are still waiting for your screen to load, right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Just making sure.
Just trying to find, Zoom doesn't want to cooperate with me to find the Konnect screen. I should be able to see that I have Gateway Manager on my screen with my gateway, or with my control plane, excuse me. And that control plane has a bunch of configuration in it, which I've created. So there's two services. There's also routes that I've created, also a consumer, which has a credential assigned to it, and plugins, which are bound to this service. Okay. With that out of the way, let's give Mattia the floor to show how to actually utilize this configuration with data planes that you can deploy in your cluster.
Oh, is Mattia frozen?
I think he dropped.
I think he will be joining us pretty quickly. Maybe it was a problem with his internet, which is why he couldn't see your screen before. Let's give him a minute to join. Welcome back, Mattia.
Yeah, sorry for that. Let's start. I apologize in advance because my internet connection is a little bit unstable today. So I hope everything will be smooth enough. Okay. So, well, as you probably remember, Patrick started his demo section by showing a diagram of the Konnect entities managed by the Kong gateway operator, right? This was the diagram. So in the scenario that we had in our demo, we had the Kong gateway operator that reconciles a gateway control plane, Kong service, Kong consumer, routes, plugin, and so on and so forth. And all of them are pushed into Konnect, right? But we still need a very important bit, which is the actual data plane. Because so far we have a bunch of configurations in our Konnect organization, but we have no data plane that is able to route our traffic according to our needs, right? So what we want to do is to basically create, I just have to refresh, we just want to have some data planes in here, right? We want to route our traffic according to the configuration that we created. So let's figure out how it works, this aspect of Konnect and KGO under the hood. We have another couple of CRDs that are called data plane and Konnect extension. The data plane is a CRD that basically it represents an abstraction of a Kong proxy instance. And a Konnect extension is another CRD that can be used to customize a data plane with Konnect related configuration. So this is how basically it works. The Kong gateway operator watches for data planes and Konnect extensions and reconciles them by creating a bunch of underlying resources. The first one is an instance of the Kong deployment. And then we have a load balancer service that can be used by users to access your endpoint that are living either in your cluster or outside your cluster. And the last bit of this mechanism is the synchronization between the Kong deployment and Kong Konnect. So basically, Kong deployment reaches out to the Kong Konnect, and Kong Konnect start pushing the configuration into the Kong proxy. So that basically all our Kong services, routes, plugins are pushed in the form of Kong configuration inside the Kong deployment. And now let's get to the second part of our demo. So we need, sorry about that. We need a terminal. So on the right-hand side, we have just get all in our demo namespace. We have no resources. Get all just displays, deployment, services, pods, and stuff like that. So we have to start from our UI because we need to create a new data plane node. So the first step is creating the certificates. We have it here. And we can just create the certificates and redirect this output into TLS CRT and do the same for the private key. Okay, so we have these two files. Now, now we can create a secret out of this certificate. So we can create a Konnect client TLS secret, Kubernetes TLS secret, containing the cert and the key. So this secret is going to be used by the data plane to connect to the Konnect API server. And this is the very important first bit. And the second one, for which we have to use the web UI, is to grab the control plane ID, which is this piece of information here. And this information has to be used to customize properly the Konnect extension CRD that I mentioned before. So if we take a look at the Konnect extension, this is the piece of information. This is actually a resource that is used to customize, as I said, the data plane behavior to connect with Konnect. And we have to customize this Konnect ID with the ID that we just grabbed in the UI. Now let's deploy this Konnect extension. Here it is. And now we want to create a data plane, right? Because if you remember, we had the two bits of configuration that we need are the Konnect extension and the data plane. So we have another resource, which is the data plane here. It's a very simple. It just represents an instance of the Kong proxy deployment with two replicas, the log level set to the bug, and some requests and limits, and also the Kong proxy image set to 3.8. So let's create the data plane. Oh, well, the data plane, of course, references to the Konnect extension called my Konnect config in the same namespace. So as you can see here on the right side, a bunch of resources have been created. We have two data plane pods. We have a couple of services that we'll use later on. The deployment, replica sets, the data plane, and a Konnect extension. So if we get to the services, because we need just them, we already have an external IP because this service has been automatically provisioned by the Kong gateway operator. And since we are in a cloud provider, because this is a cluster that is shared between Patrick and myself, the cloud provider has already provisioned an external IP for this specific load balancer service. And we can use this IP to access our Kong proxy instances that are running inside our cluster. So if we go back to, the Konnect UI, we can see that the data plane has been created. If we go to data plane nodes, we can see that we have two different instances of the data plane. Well, actually, it's the same instance with the same configuration, but it's configured in a high availability mode. So we have two instances of the same proxy running. And we already have some configuration to perform some routing internally and externally. But now, before taking a look at how it works, we just want to deploy another bit of configuration, which is this file. This is a very simple deployment plus cluster IP service that is intended to expose just a Kong HTTP bean to showcase how it works. So let's create it. Okay, here it is. All right. We are a bit unfortunate because the pod is in pending state because the cloud provider node autoscaler is trying to provision a new node. So we'll have to wait a little bit before having the new node, because probably we didn't have enough resources in the already existing node. But in the meantime, I think that we can take a look at the Konnect UI and test some bits of the configuration. So if we go to gateway services, we have two different services. These have been created by Patrick. We have http-bean.io and another internal service. Now, what we can do is grabbing this external IP here and use it to try to reach out to this http-bean.io that is routed toward this http-bean route /external. So if we hit it, we are able to reach out to http-bean.io. So basically, we are using our proxy that is configured in Konnect to reach out to the proper endpoint, which is outside our cluster, right? What we can test again is a plugin that we applied to this service, which is the rate limiting plugin. So basically, we created a rate limiting to limit the amount of requests for 1 per second. So if we go back here and we curl every 0.2 seconds to this endpoint, let's use the correct IP here. We can see that should be oh yeah, it's rate limited. Let's try to be a little bit more aggressive. Every 0.1 seconds. Okay. Basically, the rate limiting has been applied to the request. And we are really rate limiting for the specific endpoints that we set. So let's get back to our pod to see that oh yes, it has been scheduled and it's running. So we should be able to reach out to we should be able to reach out to the internal endpoint as well in our cluster, which is reachable through the /internal path. Oh yeah, it doesn't work because there is another plugin on such a service, which is the key authentication plugin. So to reach out to it, we have to use a specific header in our request, which is API key with a very strong password that we set just for this time. And now we should be able to reach out to our internal deployment that we created. Here it is. And basically, we are talking to this internal deployment. So we are routing the traffic between external endpoints and internal endpoints. Now let's get back to our presentation. So the demo is over, and what's next? Because we have implemented a lot of different things around Konnect and the Konnect integration with KGO, but there is still something to do. For example, we want to add support for API products, dev portal, and some more resources that can be created and managed in the Konnect. And also we want to improve the Konnect extension CRD in basically two different ways. The first one is to allow the data plane to be able to reference the Konnect gateway control plane with a Konnect namespace ref, which means in practice that you won't need to switch between the terminal and the Konnect UI to grab the control plane ID and set it into the Konnect extensions as we did before. So basically, after this feature will be implemented, you will be able to basically never leave your terminal and your file configuration files when creating a data plane for Konnect. And the second one is to allow the Konnect extension to be bound to the control plane. In that way, you will be able to create gateway API gateways inside your cluster, and the Kong gateway operator will provision the control plane and the data plane, which means Kong controller, Kong ingress controller, and the Kong proxy, and both of them will be configured inside Konnect to act as a control plane and as a data plane. While today we only have support for the data plane in relation to the Konnect extension. Here is a couple of references that you may find useful. Just some documentation related to the Kong gateway operator and the Konnect enabled data plane. And the last one is the repository for the Kong gateway operator, because Kong gateway operator, as well as the Kong proxy, is completely open source. So if you are curious, you can get there and take a look at the real code, basically, that makes everything working. Thank you, everybody. And if you have any questions, we are very happy to answer them.